Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Imagi-Nation Labs. My name is Rhianne Miller, and I'm one of the co-CEOs at AIM this year, and I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land in which we're all zooming in from today. I pay my respects to elders who are the knowledge bearers and the holders of traditional law and living. I honour the future elders, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander young people, and that they grow up strong in themselves, feel their hopes and dreams, and continue to carry their languages, cultural traditions, and stories. I would also like to acknowledge that I'm a proud Wirangu, Narungga, and Wongatha woman from a long line of storytellers and educators, and it is a privilege for me to be here today. Today, we're going to be talking about storytelling and journalism with some incredible mentors from Bloomberg. We encourage the free flow of ideas in our Imagi Labs, so feel free to throw, that's a bit of a tongue twister, any thoughts, comments, or questions into the chat line, and any mentors and students, feel free to jump in if you have anything to add or if you'd like to follow up on some of the questions that we asked today. For our first part of today's show, we're going to do a 60-second challenge for every single person on this Zoom call today. And we want you to share any part of you that you think is important. So you can speak as fast or as slow as you like, or into as much detail as you like. And essentially, you've got 60 seconds to tell us your life story. Are we up for the challenge? Sweet. All right, let's get the timer on the screen. Let's kick off with Kalani. And then let's do it. Once you finish talking, you nominate someone else. Oh my God, it's going. All right, go Kalani.
Okay, hi, my name's Kalani Ripley. I'm an ex-AIM student. I am the president, oh no, it's not president, it's ambassador now at Bond University in Queensland. I am currently in Melbourne. I am an entrepreneur. I run a few businesses. I've got 45 seconds. Okay, so I can slow down. So I have started companies all throughout my life. Started my first company when I was 13. When I was 14, I sold my first company. When I was 16, I painted with my first invention. And then now I'm 19. I'm currently in Melbourne, as some of you guys may be able to see. I'm about to scan in that building. How cool is that? I think it's cool, at least. We're about to help people make products and help them make their own inventions, which is awesome. We've helped bring over 40 products to market in the past in the past 8 months of my company. So it's been really good. I've got 3 seconds left. Cool, good, great job. I'll pass it on to, who do I want to stitch up? I'll pass it on to Zoe.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Kalani. Hi, everyone. Zoe Ryan here, dialing in from Sydney. I'm a Gadigal country employee of Bloomberg. Quick life story, born in Brisbane. I grew up on the east coast of Australia, so I lived in Sydney and Melbourne, but did most of my schooling and university in Brisbane, so really call that home. I went to university there, did an exchange in Montreal, was very fortunate to do another exchange in France, so did some great travel through my time at university. And when I finished university, decided that I had the travel bug, and so wanted to move to London. Started with Bloomberg in 2015 in London, where I was there for 2 years before moving back to a role in Sydney with Bloomberg, where I've been since 2017. So Have been with the company for about 6.5 years, and within that time have done about 4 different jobs. So been the one company, but lots of different roles and lots of different lessons, which has been a really good time. So I've got about 7 seconds left. I think that was a pretty good wrap up. So I'm going to hand it over to my friend Aileen.
Thanks, Zoe. So I'm Aileen, and I'm also with Zoe in the Sydney office on Gadigal land. I actually just started Bloomberg this year as a grad in the analytics and sales program in January. So that meant that I graduated uni last year. I went to University of Sydney and I did a bachelor in marketing and international business, which is entirely different to my role now, which is kind of in like finance and data and tech. So really enjoying the challenge. When I was younger, and this is just like kind of pre-uni, during uni, I definitely wasn't too sure of kind of where I wanted to go. So I'm still figuring things out. But I tried out a couple of different kind of experiences, from marketing to politics as well. And, unfortunately, my exchange did get cancelled because of COVID, but I was lucky to kind of go on a few trips during uni as well. So happy to talk about that later. Okay, I'm going to pass on to Kalmudi.
Thanks, Aileen. So I'm Kalmudi. I'm dialing in from Singapore. I originally come from India, and I have been in Singapore for a good decade now, 10 plus years. A little about myself. I was born and raised in a bustling town called Mumbai in India on the western coast. I have studied, I'm a mechanical engineer, and then I went on to do my post-graduation in supply chain. So last 15, 16 plus years I've been working in supply chain. Just about 4 years with Bloomberg, also within supply chain, but it's exciting to be here and listening to everyone's stories and looking forward to it. Is that good, Rhianne? I will pass on to Yuki.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yuki, and I am in Tokyo. I was born and raised in Japan, but I spent some time in America and also Mexico. And I joined Bloomberg about 16 years ago as a marketing and PR person. And soon I started working on our arts and culture program here at Bloomberg. And while like the first role for me was to deepen and enrich our philanthropy program for Tokyo, I expanded my role and I started traveling to Hong Kong, Singapore, Sydney, and other cities across Asia Pacific to start working with museums and culture organizations. And we support various arts programs, and I'm still continuing with that role. So I work with lots of amazing organizations in Australia, like my favorites are CarriageWorks, Acme, and GB. And I always talk so highly of Australia because it's one of the most amazing countries in APAC, where I feel the art is really, amazing and everybody's engaged in a very meaningful way. And next, I will give it to Harry.
Thanks, Yuki. Appreciate it. Hi, everyone. Privileged to be here. Really excited about today and enjoying just the chats we've had already before getting on. Like some of the, like Aileen and Yuki and Zoe, I'm also with Bloomberg. I'm on the news side of the business, so I'm a journalist reporting from the Sydney Bureau on Gadigal land here. Originally, I'm from Queensland, like Kalani and Zoe, and I've grew up in Western Queensland, a place called Roma. Worked in newspapers for a while and worked in Brisbane reporting on all sorts of stuff, politics, suburban news, crime, and then worked up in North Queensland for a while in Townsville, covering everything from, Townsville down to Bowen and out to Mount Isa, which was a lot of fun. Then I moved into financial journalism and I covered basically Wall Street from New York for about 5 years. I was with Reuters before I joined Bloomberg. So that's about it for me. Maybe I'll pass it on to Artem. Love to hear his story.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Artem, dialing in from Tanzania. I was born in South Sudan, and I've been living in Uganda as a refugee for 12 years now. And currently, I'm studying medicine in Tanzania. And of course, I don't have that much uh, credit, but of course, I've been involved in like community engagement, like running small projects in the community in the refugee camps, and that's just the part of me currently. I don't have that much, and I'm just continuing to grow like that. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Atem. Yuki, do we have you yet? No, we don't. Luckily, can I be part of the 30-second challenge? Great. All right, let's start the timer. My name is Rhianne Miller. I was born and raised in a very small country town at the bottom of South Australia called Ceduna. It's kind of along the Nullarbor for those of us in Australia. Oh wow, this is harder than I thought, under pressure. Born and raised there, grew up, went to primary school there, moved to Adelaide, the closest city, which is 10 hours away, for high school. And that's towards the end of my high schooling experience. That's when I met AIM as a student in the program. Got to experience AIM for a year. Once I graduated, pretty much harassed the founder and CEO for a role within the organization. And so that was just over 7 years ago now. Have had an awesome 7 years of traveling, setting AIM up in different locations. And because of COVID, I also had to come back from the States where I was living for a few months because travel insurance isn't covered by pandemics. And now I'm settled here on the Sunshine Coast, and I made that just within the timer. Our next segment of the show, thank you all very much for sharing your stories and how you got here and who you are. Yuki, do we have you yet? No, we don't. We're having some technical difficulties across continents and countries. I'm going to hand it over to the crew at Bloomberg to give us a little presentation on journalism and what you guys have been up to. Thanks very much for coming on today.
No problem. I guess that's me. So yeah, Harry Brompton here, and really glad to be able to chat with you all about a little bit about what I do. I'm sure some of the other folks from Bloomberg will fill you in on what they're up to, and I look forward to kind of hearing about what we can help with. I'm going to just talk a little bit about me, what my job involves, why I like journalism, and I'm not sure if we're doing questions, or feel free to just throw them in the chat, and I can kind of take them as they come. Really, I think I've only got about 5 minutes, so I'll try and keep it pretty tight. My role here at Bloomberg is I cover everything kind of finance and banking in Australia for Bloomberg. Bloomberg's a news organization. I mean, we do a lot of other things, but people visit us and try and stay ahead of the curve, especially as it comes to finance, economics, and markets. And my job is to cover the region here, particularly with banks and mergers and acquisitions, which some of you may know or some of you may not, but basically M&A, as it's called, or corporate takeovers, is anytime a company buys another company. And I also cover kind of bankruptcies and IPOs, initial public offerings, where companies go from a private company to being listed on the ASX and becoming a public company that shareholders can buy into. I've been doing journalism, as I said in my introduction, for a long time, and I was doing it a lot of different things before I started covering finance as a specialty. Being a journalist, if any of you are thinking about it, is a really fun job. It's a challenging job. It can be a stressful job, but I really enjoy it. I find it very fulfilling because my job is essentially to talk to people smarter than me and learn about the world from them and experience a lot of interesting places and events. In my time, I've covered things like house fires. I've interviewed people who've just lost all their belongings to floods. I've interviewed people who've been attacked by crocodiles, attacked by sharks. I've been in a police car chase. I interviewed Kevin Rudd when he was Prime Minister, and a couple of my favorite novelists when I was a book reviewer. I've driven supercars, and I've been in a V8 race car when I was a car reviewer as well. Just yesterday, I interviewed Mike Cannon-Brookes, who's a billionaire that some of you may know. He founded Atlassian, which is a software company. And I was chatting with him about his plans to spend about $5.8 billion of his own pocket money trying to overhaul this energy retailer that people in New South Wales will probably know, called AGL, because he wants to make it less coal reliant and more climate friendly. So some of those things, I mean, those are just the things that I can kind of remember off the top of my head when I was asked to present about the things that kind of jump out for me. Some of it's very sad, obviously, not all of it's, fun stuff, but all in all, it's, what's great about it is, it's a real privilege to see and write about, the panorama of human experience. And there's journalism offers an opportunity to help people at their darkest times, as well as, uplift people with good stories. Nowadays, what I do is kind of, I work in Sydney, and I used to cover Wall Street. So it's a bit of a different world from what I started to in papers. But what I love about financial markets, especially if anyone is interested in that kind of stuff, is that you really get to understand how the world works in a different and kind of predictable way. We all pay attention to politics, and rightly so. But I think people tend to underrate the influence of economics and trade on how the world works and how the world moves. All too often, when we're kind of weighing this or that personality or domestic party issue or management, politicians or our bosses at the companies we work at themselves, they're kind of sometimes the subject of just financial flows and economic principles and market impacts. And to the extent that we all live and work in a market economy and a globalized world, these factors, like we've seen with Russia and Ukraine, can have huge influences on our lives in terms of the price of fuel and the availability of food and all sorts of things like that. So I enjoy the fact that, and I learn a lot out of it. Journalism is really just an extended apprenticeship. I feel like I'm still at university or school every day. And it's great for people that have curious minds and want to learn more each day. Even yesterday, for example, the Reserve Bank of Australia raised interest rates, and Scott Morrison, there's talk even that something like that could cost him the election, which, it's something we often don't think about when we're thinking about party politics. But, statistics show that even in the US, presidents, for example, have basically never won a re-election when there's a recession on. All of that's kind of to say that, you should pay attention to the business pages if you're not already. And that's what I enjoy about it. I think at a larger level, if you're interested in journalism, as lots of young people are, what are the next steps? For me, I didn't actually study journalism until much later, and a lot of journalists don't explicitly study media or communications or journalism at a university level, although I would recommend it if you're interested in it. But if there's areas of journalism that you're especially interested in, whether it's politics or science or finance or anything like that, or even arts, stuff, I would actually recommend, studying those fields as well, because it's in some ways easier to learn the craft of journalism than it is to learn about a whole new subject matter expertise. And I think even editors, when they're hiring journalists, kind of look for that stuff. I'd say as well, it's never too early to start. We actually have internship programs for Indigenous students here at Bloomberg that we're very proud of, and we'd love to have as many people as we can come through our doors and learn from us and contribute to what we do here. In retrospect, personally, I wish I'd started interning and getting hands-on experience in the media industry a lot earlier than I did, and it's a great way to kind of pick up how it's actually done rather than studying it in books, although the university courses you'll get a lot from, and so that's always a great place to start. I think that probably might be capping close to my 5 minutes, and I'd love to hear any questions. I think, overall, Bloomberg's a great place. I love covering finance because it's an opportunity to learn new things every day, and it's been a privilege to talk to you all.
Thank you very much, Harry. I might just throw it around to the Bloomberg crew before we go into any of the questions that come through the chat line. I'd love to know, how did you get involved within Bloomberg, and then specifically within the aspect of journalism? Why is journalism important, and what is it?
Thanks. I came to Bloomberg I'd already been covering finance for Reuters, which is another newswire, global newswire that covers finance, and they're very similar organizations in a lot of ways in terms of what they cover, and the audience that reads it is mostly financial professionals. So basically, one of my bosses left Reuters to join Bloomberg, and she offered me a spot and told me there was an opening in Australia. I was working in New York at the time, and actually I wasn't that interested, but once they started pitching me on it, you start daydreaming about having a job that allows you to kind of go to the beach and, be a bit closer to family again and all that stuff. So that was where the conversation came up for me. And it's been a challenge because a lot of the type of journalism I do is based upon the sources and the network that you have. And so when I left New York, I basically threw away my whole Rolodex of contacts and had to kind of start again. And I've been spending 2.5 years getting to know everyone in Australia that matters in the financial world. It depends on the type of journalism that you pursue, I think, as to the skill set you need and how much enjoyment you'll get from it. I mean, I think different personalities are suited to different types of journalism. So if you really enjoy writing and written expression, and maybe you enjoy your English essays and those kind of things, then you might be more suited to a feature writing role or opinion or something like that. There's other jobs in the newsroom we have here that are far more breaking news. It's a lot of speed, and so if you thrive on adrenaline and the chase and the kind of gamesmanship of breaking news and getting scoops before someone else does, then maybe that's more for you. And then, source-based reporting like I do is very relationship driven. I'm not a massive extrovert myself, but I think, people that have that and enjoy that personalized aspect of getting to know people and building contacts and having fun conversations, I think is, those would be the type of people suited for that. So I think, journalism isn't a one type fits all kind of model. I think there's room for different skill sets within that. And I'd challenge you, if you're interested, to kind of take it up and see what suits you.
Thank you very much, Harry. We've actually had quite a few questions coming in. So the first one is, in your career of journalism, what is a standout moment of human kindness that you've witnessed or that you've been a part of in some way?
Ooh, that is a very good question. Man, I should have prepped some answers for that. I think, so I started in 2012, was my first year as a cadet reporter at the Courier Mail in Brisbane. And it was a year on from the floods. I mean, I know Brisbane's just had floods recently again, but those ones in 2011 were particularly hard hitting. And there were people still at that point that were still recovering and had lost their entire household possessions. There was a lot of really community resilience in particular suburbs too, and it really brought communities together, people donating household goods, helping each other clean up. It was a really inspiring moment, and I think it really galvanized Brisbane. I think it's still got a lot of that community spirit from it. And the same thing up north, Townsville had Cyclone Yasi, which might have been 2010 or so, if I'm right. And it was much the same, where the communities were a lot stronger from it. And when those events happened again, everyone was more prepared. I think, sporting events are great too. When I was in Townsville, there was, it was the year that the Cowboys were in the NRL grand final, and seeing the whole community rally when the team got on the bus to go to the airport to get on the flight. Honestly, I felt like the whole town was just on the road lining up to cheer them on. It was a pretty inspiring moment. It's great to see a whole community come together like that.
That's really cool. I love just the vision that I can get in my head just by you explaining what happened, like being able to physically see people come together for a greater good. I want to throw it over to Zoe. Now, I know you're very active in philanthropy and not necessarily journalism in the sense of being out in the field. Is that right? Or do you get out in the field as well?
Yeah, that's correct, Rhianne. So Bloomberg, while we have a very big media and news presence, we also are a data provider and a financial technology company as well. So very heavily involved in the philanthropy side of things, but not so much. I envy some of Harry's stories, not so much in the journalism space.
Cool. Well, I've got a great question for you, Zoe. In your space of philanthropy, what have you learned about kindness through your work?
This is a really great question, and I think there are so many ways to answer this. But I think one thing that I've really learned through my efforts with philanthropy through Bloomberg, by going out into communities and meeting people who have so little, is the gratitude and the appreciation that people have for what they do have. And while that may not be material things, it's relationships, and it's, you know, the love that they have from the people around them, and what they make of that and what they do with that. It's really incredible to watch, and it's really inspiring to watch. It certainly puts things into perspective and gives you a little bit of context, you know, and on how fortunate we all are to have what we have, but also helps you to really focus on the things that are important. And that's not the material things, it's the people we have in our lives, and it's our health, and it's, you know, having access to shelter and food and clean water, and, you know, to see some people who are still so happy and so generous and so kind who don't have a lot of those things is incredibly inspiring.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when we do go through those big disasters or natural disasters that Harry has spoken about, we often in those moments can see the importance of kindness and connection and community and people really coming together. So I'd like to throw my next question out to all of you on the panel, including Kalani and Atem. What does storytelling mean to you, and how has it changed in the last 10 years?
Maybe I'll make it.
Yeah, go.
Go ahead, Kalani. Okay, I'll maybe make an attempt first. So I'm not from a journalism background. I'm more from a supply chain. So now everyone's heard about supply chain because we are not getting our laptops and phone in time because there's so many shortages, and flights are getting delayed and canceled. So people are not getting the regular things we were used to in the supermarkets or when we order on Amazon, right? So I work in that boring back-end industry of supply chain, even at Bloomberg. So storytelling for me is when I talk about a boring subject like supply chain, how do I make it interesting depending upon who I'm speaking to? So if I go to people in my office, or if I go to the news teams or the sales team and I tell them, no, I can't give you this keyboard, or I can't give you these things to give out to your clients because of whatever reason, it's going to sound very boring and sound very drab, right? So I think storytelling is an art, and storytelling is so essential to what we do every day, and it builds relationships. It helps to understand each other, and it helps to understand each other as human beings and not just professional contacts, right? So for me, storytelling is extremely important, and it plays an extremely important role, and I have experienced it firsthand as a professional. So depending upon which meeting I'm walking into, whether I'm meeting my vendors, I will have a different way of telling the same story. If I'm meeting my team, I will have a different way. This content is the same, but the way you pitch it is different. Whereas if I'm going to my management team to get an approval, I will tell the same story, but how I present it, what I tell, definitely will differ. So basically the content is the same, but how you pitch it to different people depending upon your audience. So when it comes to storytelling, it's extremely important to know your audience. And to your point, how it has changed over the last 10 years, maybe, I think we lived in an era of very much of a presentations and PowerPoints and pitches back in the day, which I don't say we don't anymore, but I think social media is much more popular and much more available to everybody now. So I think it's a very powerful tool to influence anybody, and 140 characters is probably the way to go. So as long as you can fit your story on an Instagram post or a 140 characters, I think that's amazing. And I'm going to throw in one personal thing here as well. I think it helps me in my personal life. I have two kids, an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. If I tell them not to do something, they are going to do that. But if it's a story which they understand and they can relate to, they definitely understand why I'm telling that, and it makes my life so much easier. So I think storytelling is extremely important, extremely powerful, and very much necessary for human connections.
Great, thank you very much. And I particularly loved what you said about storytelling being a form of art. And I think, you know, especially during the last crazy 2 years we've all been through with lockdowns and Zoom calls and connection problems physically and with the internet, I think, you know, the art of storytelling has been something that we've been able to build upon. And, you know, as we've had news articles and all sorts of pieces of journalism coming out, we've had to start to understand storytelling from different lenses. So I absolutely love that you can bring the supply chain view to that as well. Kalani, you wanted to jump in and chat about what storytelling meant to you. I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Yeah, I think you touched on just about everything that I was going for there, but I think one thing is just the amazing different mediums in the way that you can have, you can tell different stories. For example, I went and saw Hamilton last night, great musical, would recommend. Went and saw it and you know, that's a musical, it's theater, it's very, you know, it's very loud and you know, that's a story about Alexander Hamilton. And then, well, really anyway, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of Hamilton, but it's a fantastic story. And, you know, my girlfriend was crying and it was a whole mess. But then tonight we're going to a comedy club. Now whoever's going to be there, that comedy club, that person is going to tell a story, but it's going to be a story about, you know, why the dog crossed the road. I hope not. I hope that's not what it's about. But it's going to be a story similar to that, less so about, you know, a founding father of the United States. So I think the way that we tell different stories, and especially for somebody like me, who pretty much my entire job these days is sales, I'm always selling somebody on a project, a product, you know, a placement, whatever it may be. I'm always selling something. So for me, I have to shape a story in the way they may want it. If they're looking, you know, and I worked in advertisement sales and real estate sales for a bit there, and it was always, oh, I don't want it. Well, let me shape it to make it seem like you want it. Especially, you know, when we're selling stuff to business owners, it's like, this will help you grow your business. There's your sales. So it's really interesting to see like the way that you can move stories in different mediums and different formats and to make them help, you know, just suit yourself.
I'd love to throw in the topic of imagination into this conversation. And I'd specifically love to know how imagination plays into the work that you guys do at Bloomberg. Aileen, would you like to kick us off?
Yeah, of course. That's actually such an interesting kind of topic as well to talk about, because I think for me at least, when I'm adjusting kind of, you know, from uni life into full-time work, I definitely found it at first challenging to really, you know, focus on kind of how do I want to, you know, stand out, and how do I want to kind of, I guess, make a brand and, you know, tell my story at the company. And I think imagination plays such a crucial role when you kind of, you know, first start somewhere and you do really, you know, want to make a name for yourself. You want to make genuine, real connections and real relationships with people. And I think when you have a great imagination and you really do value, you know, creativity, and, you know, that could be, you know, well, I want to improve, you know, how Bloomberg does volunteering. I want to improve these different type of kind of processes of how we interact with the news team or other types of teams and departments around Bloomberg. When you really do kind of value creativity and imagination, when it's not as obvious, I guess, because, you know, you're kind of doing an everyday role, that's not the first thing that comes to mind. But I think when you kind of go above and beyond and really place kind of imaginative work of how you can connect with other people and, you know, reach out to other departments, I think that's something that I really want to focus on and has really been at front of mind. So I think it's super important, especially when you're starting at a new place, when you really do want to kind of make a name for yourself and connect to other people. You have to kind of use your own imagination to really dig deep into how you can kind of contribute and add value and help out other people in the organization.
Yeah, thank you very much, Aileen. When I think about, you know, wanting to do well in a workplace or in university or in life, you know, when we have our own goals that we're working towards, often at the other end of that spectrum is failure, right? This big scary thing that we don't want to confront, we don't want to feel, we don't want to accept that we could fail, or how like, how do we even handle that? And so my next question is for you, Atem, and I'd love to know how you handle failure. How has failure shaped you to work the way you do and to be able to tell stories and to connect with people?
Yeah, I think it's pretty a good question. I think I have to deal with this as a student, as a person in life. And I've always understood like failure as something not to be punished, but to be analyzed, to see how you can find ways to do something different. And that has been just the driving force where like you see that, yeah, you don't do well and what can you do? And of course, something amazing that some societies really understand that failure is actually part of the journey and it's not really punishable. And that really gives like the young generation that motivation to do everything they can. You cannot have that fear. You definitely know that this is something not punishable and you can really go through it, but knowing that you can do something different to do that, because nobody's gonna hate that. Like nobody's gonna say you're a failure, and people will actually come in to help you when they see that you're failing. There's people who will be there for you, and I think it's just one thing the communities are doing, like coming together to see how this person can progress, and maybe how the whole community or the whole world can progress through like doing different things to make things better. And I think that's what it means to me.
I absolutely love that. And I particularly love the line you said in there, which was failure is not something to be punished, but something to be analyzed to do different. And I absolutely love that. Thank you very much for sharing. Okay, in our pre-show little warm-up, we spoke about us playing a game on here today. And so I want to see how this is going to work. The game is called Would I Lie to You? I'm going to get one or two of you on this call to self-nominate yourselves to tell a story. The rules is it has to be super simple and mundane and a true or false story. So let's not get too elaborate. And then everyone else on this call gets to ask you 3 questions. And then we're going to determine if we think it's true or false. Who would like to nominate themselves to tell a story?
You know what? I'll go after Zoe.
Okay, Zoe, tell us a story.
All right, so last week I went to my local Woolies and I actually went in there to buy just some ice cream and some Milo, which is my go-to dessert, but they were having a special on TV Snacks malt flavor. So decided at the last minute to go without my favorite Milo and ice cream and instead to go with the TV Snacks, which is pretty contentious in my household.
Okay, I'm going to get everyone else on this call to take themselves off mute, and we're going to have a chat very openly while it's live streaming to YouTube. Who wants to ask Zoe the first question?
What TV snacks did you get? Did you get the original ones, the Krispy Kreme? Which ones did you get?
So they were the Malt Sticks. They've got a little bit of extra flavour than the traditional TV Snacks, but certainly they pack a punch.
Why are these disliked in your household?
Not disliked.
Oh my God, Kalani, we've only got one more question left. Come on. Okay, no, you can finish that one, Zoe. Apologies.
I was saying not disliked, but certainly secondary to Milo and ice cream.
Okay. Yuki, you look like you've got a good question.
Was it really? Actually, I don't have a question.
Did you have to buy only one, Zoe?
I bought one box.
As in, why not Milo, ice cream, and the snacks?
Oh, we've already had our 3 questions.
Oops.
Okay, Harry, you are the journalist here. So I'm going to get you to make our decision. Do we think Zoe is telling a true or false story?
Oh, I shouldn't accuse my colleague of fibbing. You know, we're so collegiate here, but I just suspect that we were talking about toppings earlier today, and that might have prompted her to make up a story about Milo. So purely based on that, I'm going to guess that she's pulling our leg.
Yeah, we've had Kalani chuck in the chat line, false, 100% no way. Zoe fully frothed the ice cream pre-show. Zoe, what's the verdict?
I mean, I think, quite frankly, you two are in the wrong profession. You should be detectives. It was a complete frothy. It was a massive furphy. I was panicking the last minute, and you're exactly right. It was something we'd just spoken about, and that was where the lie came from. So well done.
Good job, crew. Okay, I reckon we've got time for one more round. Who would like to tell us a story? Kalani, would you like to tell us a story?
Okay, hang on. Just give me a second so I can think, so I'm not just going to start splitting out words. Okay, so last night I went to Hamilton, as I said earlier. Went to Hamilton. Now, Rhianne knows me, so she might guess this, but so I'm going to exclude Rhianne in this. But I was walking into Hamilton and we bought tickets last minute because I flew into Melbourne last night. There was $70 each. And then we went in and I looked at Ticket Tech. I looked at which tickets were still available, and there were $1,000 a ticket. So instead we just went upstairs to the $1,000 ones that were available and got the best seat in the house.
What's your first question, crew?
Was it a packed house? How big was the crowd?
It was very packed. It was like, I would say it was probably 95% capacity.
Kalani, have you ever done the wrong thing before? What's your risk appetite?
Yeah.
100% always does the wrong thing.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I've done a few bad things, but I'm a very
within reason.
I'm a moral person. I go 5Ks over. I'd speed a little bit.
No, we're not admitting that on air. Take it back.
All right, did we get
All right,
one?
third question. Who's got it? No questions been asked. Does that mean you guys are ready to make a decision? Can I get a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Are we ready? All right. Zoe, you were the only thumbs down. You've got the chance to ask Kalani one more question.
All right, Kalani, tell me exactly where the $1,000 seats were in the theatre.
They were up in the dress circle. So there was the stalls where our ones were, and the dress circle, and it was like a couple rows back. So you know how, I'm not sure if you've been to Her Majesty's Theatre in Melbourne, they've got like a bar so you don't flip over the top, because of course you have to. So then like 4 rows back, it was like directly like looking down, you could see the entirety of the stage.
I don't even know what I believe right now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is get everyone to take themselves off of mute. I'm going to count down from 3. So I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, and then you're going to yell out as loud as you can, because you're all in very important office spaces, whether you think it is a true or false story. Okay, are you ready? 3, 2, 1.
False.
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 Okay, who said false on here? Can you raise your hand? All right, 3 for false, 3 for true. What was it, Kalani?
Absolutely false. I wouldn't disrespect the theatre like that.
That's so brilliant. That was a great story, Kalani. Good job. I'm still taking a moment to try to function after that because I thought it was totally true. It wouldn't surprise me absolutely at all. Okay, so we've had a couple more questions come through that I just want to quickly throw around to before we wrap up the show. Kalani, since you have just taken us away with a storytelling component, I would love to know what is the most important skill in storytelling?
To be able to speak with absolute confidence, so you can say that you bought $1,000 Hamilton tickets. No, I think just the ability to be able to speak with confidence and have a well presented argument or moral or whatever you're trying to say. Just know that to your core, and then everything else will come. For example, I knew I wanted to win this game, so everything else came with that story.
Great. And I love that you've touched on morals there, because I think what we often find with journalism or, sources that are online is that we can never truly know how credible they are, or it takes us a process to be able to work that out. So Harry, my question to you is, how can we help young people discover reliable and credible sources / journalism?
Yeah, it's a great question and really, really important in this era, I think. I struggle with it very much myself, even as a professional journalist. And it is remarkable to me, even very well-respected publications sometimes get stuff wrong, often get stuff wrong. And, the standards have slipping. And as a journalist, it seems like the goalposts are always moving in terms of code of conduct and what's allowed. It's a really tricky era, and it's a poor time, I think, for journalism in terms of standards, unfortunately. I've always, when I went through school, we got a lot of training in, English and stuff about, postmodern theory and all this stuff. But ultimately, it comes down to, being as well read as you can and being as curious as possible. I think taking everything with a skeptical attitude is actually a very healthy way to go. And it doesn't mean you have to be negative about the good stories out there. It just means that you have to be willing to compare and contrast information and try and see both sides. Because what I've always found as a journalist actually is that there really are so many shades of gray. It's, there's black and white, but the more you talk to people on both sides, you understand that the percentage of out there of people who are really evil and trying to hurt other people is just so small. There's very few true pathological people out there, and so if you take the effort to try and understand where both sides are coming from, then it can really help. Just reading widely as well, it helps build a picture. And even if, I always worry stuff drops out of your head and you forget things over time, you read a book and 2 years later, you've forgotten it. But the information, while, the facts might not be there, it builds a constellation of knowledge that you can kind of lean towards, reference, and it helps you be a better critic of information when it comes to you as well. So those are probably my things. Take as much time as you can to interrogate information and read widely.
Thank you very much. Some great advice for those watching this. Harry, you mentioned earlier there was an opportunity for internships through Bloomberg for journalism. Was that right? If yes,
that's right.
Great.
Yep.
How can people get involved?
Great. So we open that up to final year. Actually, no, it might be any year university students. So once you've all moved on from high school and are in the university system, if you are doing that, I think it's with most major universities, and it's through a program we can link up. Even on the Bloomberg website, we do have global internship opportunities, and I'd probably direct Yuki to share the information with the full participation group after that. But we have had 2 participants through this year, and we would love as many more to come as we can.
Yeah, so at Bloomberg, we work with a lot of different charities in Australia, but one of them is Career Trackers. And actually, we are inviting the students today in our office, and we're very excited. Zoe and others will be there to welcome them. But anyways, through Career Trackers, if you are a member there, you could talk to your manager to see if there is opportunity through them. But otherwise, we have a lot of different ways to be connected, like through AIM and through Go Foundation or through any organizations that you might belong to. And if you're interested, if you come to myself or anyone at Bloomberg, especially on this panel, we would be very excited and happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I can think of a couple kids that might be interested off the top of my head already, so I'll be sure to send them through. We're almost ready to wrap up the show, but what I would love to do is to get all of you sharing what your 10-second message would be to kids around the world. And I'm going to kickstart that off with Harry. And then Harry, you can nominate the next person to speak.
Okay, another great question. It's so cliched, but, find the things that you really enjoy. And it might not be a job as much as an activity itself that you can make a job out of. But it's the old follow your passion stuff. So, for me, it was reading and writing, and I was always interested in finance. And so, I never thought I'd be a financial journalist, but it kind of intersected with the things I'm interested in. And to do well, in this world where it's a competitive place. And so you have to be willing to work long hours. And so if you follow your passion, that really helps, kick ass. And I'll pass probably to Yuki because she helped me on the last answer.
Right. The short message that I want to deliver here is that even at this time of the point that, now, like you might not think something that you like and you want to do in your life might not seem to be something realistic or possible. There's always a way. And I would suggest that you talk to as many people as possible to have mentors in your life and get their advice and, ask them for connections if they have any. And I think through meeting and learning from other people, like through your connections, you will find a completely new way. Maybe it's beyond your imagination sometimes, but then you find a way to, to get to where you want to be. And that could be completely something totally different from what you initially imagined. But then, I think people are the keys to really help you get where you'd be happy. And it's been so with my life. And I hope that it will be with a lot of yours as well. And next I will pass it to Kalmudi.
Thanks, Yuki. For 10 seconds, dream big, work hard, and persevere. 3 things. Remember that, okay? I'll pass it on to Zoe.
Thanks, Kalmudi. 10 seconds. Be kind to others and also to yourself. Over to you, Atem.
Yeah, 10 seconds will be to the children to be committed to education and find their purpose to change the world. I'll pass it on.
What was that, Atem? Be committed to education and
find their purpose to change the world. I don't know who's left.
I can jump in. I would say don't let the urgent crowd out the important things, and to really kind of know and figure out the priorities that you want for yourself and your life. So yeah, I really like the ones that have been said so far.
Is that all of us? Yes, I think so. Thank you all very much for joining us. And Kalani just sent me an apology text because he accidentally left the meeting and is trying to rejoin now. Thank you all for joining us on another episode of Imagi-Nation Labs with the awesome crew at Bloomberg to, I suppose, try to summarize what this incredible meeting has been. I've been frantically taking notes. And I think everything you guys just said in your 10 seconds is enough to fully capture the realm of what this meeting has been. So in this meeting, we've covered storytelling is an art. Failure is not something to be punished, but something to be analyzed to do different. There is always a way. Get mentors in your life, seek connections, and always be open to learning. Follow your passions, dream big and work hard. Be kind to others and also to yourself. Be committed to education, find your purpose to change the world, and don't let the urgent crowd out the important, and figure out your priorities. Thank you all very much for joining us on another episode of Imagination Labs. Have a great day.